Oh, we're back. We're back with episode 2 of the Weekly Puck Off, brought to you by Colt 45 and Boudreezy.
Yeah.
Your number one source for NHL weekly discussion, fantasy advice, and more.
Great intro.
Woo, thank you. I was trying out a...
Wow.
I don't know what kind of voice that was, but...
A creepy pedophile
I like
voice.
it. It
A
got me
haunted
going.
house. I should get hired for that haunted house in Truro.
Don't get in his van.
All right, nice little fade out of this music here while we give a brief introduction of what we're going to be discussing this week. What's topic number 1?
Well, first of all, I think we should introduce our illustrious producer here, producer Connor.
Producer Connor.
About that, I just wanted to bring up, I wanted to discuss the fact, why are we calling him producer Connor when he does nothing in the way of production, editing, whatsoever?
Well, he does kind of help us out. He keeps us
I
on track.
produce on
He-
a
he
day
produ-
in, day out schedule.
Are you sure
I
you don't-
produce entertainment.
So you don't reproduce?
Well. Let's not get
Maybe
into
that's
that
maybe
right
that-
now.
that's a subject for another podcast.
Yeah.
And on that note,
Let's move on to the first topic. All right.
I'm not done talking about Connor yet. I think we should really. I wanted to mention that his hair is immaculate this week.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I'm getting a haircut tomorrow.
How often, on average, would you say that you get your hair cut?
Every 3 weeks to a month, maybe.
And every time he does, the whole office is sure to know because there's an announcement.
It's a
It
day.
goes out in the email, the office email. Everyone has to sign a waiver, really just confirming that they know he's getting a haircut.
Some people come watch.
Take pictures. Usually get a few pictures
Sells
signed.
tickets.
Yeah. So that's tomorrow.
We should point out that we all work together at a financial institution that will go unmentioned here in the lovely city of Halifax, Nova Scotia. Home of Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon.
The boys. The
And
boys.
speaking of Nathan McKinnon, the Avalanche still not really looking too good. They're-
Not the good. It's been a very exciting start to the season. Saturday night was great. Every team in action. Rogers doing a great job. But, Colorado just very disappointing so far. What's going on there?
Well, maybe we can get into that in a bit because I also wanted to mention Boston. Boston and Colorado, two of the leading teams in the league last year, both off to pretty weak starts. Boston is currently sitting at 1-3.
As is the Avalanche.
The Avalanche are also 1-3.
Very similar in the sense that they're both 1-3 and both have 4 goals to show through the first 4 games, an average of 1 goal a game.
Yeah, and I guess maybe what we can discuss is which of those two teams, out of the two that are really struggling out of the gate, would you say is more likely to rebound after their weak start and reemerge as a leading competitor going into the rest of the season?
They were both very strong last year. Boston, of course, a perennial contender. Colorado exceeded expectations last year and had a nice little, well, I won't say playoff run because they were eliminated in the first round, but yeah, here they are. Very disappointing start.
Yeah.
Who do you see bouncing back, if anyone, if either of those two teams?
I mean, I have to go with the Boston Bruins. They've been one of the front runners for the past several years.
Yeah.
Not much change going on with their team. They've got an all-star goalie in my eyes with Tuukka Rask, proven goaltender, strong defense, great depth. They've got a 4-line hockey team that they can run all 4 lines and not have any concern about that. Whereas the Avalanche might not quite have that to offer. A lot of young guys that haven't exactly proven themselves year in and year out like the Boston Bruins have. So I would look for Boston to once again reemerge. I fully expect them to be top 3 in the Eastern Conference by the end of the season. They're just too deep, too strong, too tough to continue performing as poorly as they are.
So if you were a Bruins fan, you wouldn't be concerned.
I would not be concerned in the slightest. And even as a non-Bruins fan, I fully expect them to regain their status as probably the top team in the East, if not at least top 3.
I would be a little bit anxious, I think, if I was a Boston fan right now. For one thing, they lose Jerome McGinley, who had a 30-goal season last year, and they didn't really replace him with anyone. Then they trade away Johnny Boychuk, who underrated defenseman there. I would probably put it 3rd on their depth chart. So they trade him away. Again, don't really replace him with anyone. So that affects their depth a little bit, I think.
Yeah, they were kind of running into cap issues there and had to let somebody go, and Boychuk was the guy.
Had no choice. The financial reality of the modern day NHL dictates that you have to make these decisions. So away goes Boychuk. Now they're having to roll with Dougie Hamilton on the first defensive pairing, who I think is a good defenseman. He's good now, has a lot of potential, but he's only 21, and that is a lot of responsibility to put on a 21-year-old's shoulders, I think. And also, Let's talk about Seidenberg here. Dennis Seidenberg coming off of ACL, MCL surgery in the offseason. So I doubt that he is 100% back up to game shape right now. So it throws their defense into a little bit of disarray, especially when you consider that Chara is showing signs of slowing down. At one point in time, he was the best defenseman in the league, and now I doubt we could put him in the top 5 or maybe even the top 10. Slow.
He's certainly not getting any younger, but he's still a big defensive presence. I mean, no one really wants to mess with him, and he doesn't have the offensive production that he once had, but he's still an excellent shutdown defenseman, and it's tough to argue with Chara as being one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL.
Yeah, he's still a front of the net presence. But I think he was kind of exposed maybe a little bit last year in the playoffs. Montreal seemed to be skating circles around him a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree. He can't quite keep up with some of those speedy players like he once could.
Who is Seth Griffith? Where did he come from? And what is he doing on the Bruins' top line?
I can't tell you myself. Do you have a little bit of research into this guy there,
He
Steve?
was like a 5th-round draft choice for the Bees back in like 2011 or 2012. He had an okay season in Providence last year, nothing too special. And maybe a little bit of desperation there that they're trying to maybe catch lightning in a bottle a little bit because they put him on the top line. They get Riley Smith over from Dallas, who I think is going to be good. He had a 50-point season last year. I have him in my fantasy outfit, and so I can attest that he's produced a little bit, has a couple of points. But
He's on that first power play unit.
I just don't think they're as deep as people kind of perceive them to be. And I think a true sign of desperation is they just signed Simon Gagne, who hasn't played in the NHL in over a year, and when he was playing, which was with the Flyers, he was kind of like a shell of his former self, I think you'd say it. I mean, Gagne used to be a great player, don't get me wrong, 2002 Olympic team, but was down to like about 20 or 30 points a year, and now they've gone and signed him. So
Yeah.
Well, they might be with that. They got him for a $600,000 one-year contract, so at that price, it might be worth taking a chance on him. Maybe he'll be a bit more of a role player, kind of fill the void that Iginla left behind. Not as good as Iginla, obviously, by any stretch, but he could be a 3rd or 4th line player.
hardly a replacement for Iginla.
No,
I think,
certainly
maybe
not. But I think, at that price, a player who was once exceptional in the NHL, maybe take a chance on him rebounding and contributing to the team.
Possibly.
That might be what they're going
Possibly.
after
I
there.
know that's what they're hoping, and I think Riley Smith is a really good dark horse option for anyone out there looking for a forward, and that guy's available. Maybe pick him up because he gets good power play minutes as well. But I don't know if I think this could be the year that Boston sort of struggles, and dare I say it, miss the playoffs.
Oh, I don't know.
I agree with Steve that maybe not miss the playoffs, but they're not as strong as they used to be.
Maybe not so much, but even losing Iginla, even if Gagne does nothing and they don't replace him whatsoever, I don't think it's realistic that they'll miss the playoffs. It's hard if you can name 8 teams in the East that are more deep and have a better presence than the Boston Bruins, then maybe I can side with you on that one, but I find it hard to believe they're outside the top 3, let alone the top 8.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully they will for all you Bruins fans out there. But I kind of have my doubts. Talking about Colorado, I personally think they're a little bit more likely to bounce back. And I'm basing that solely on the Nathan MacKinnon factor. And call me a homer or whatever you want to call me. But I'm a believer in MacKinnon, and I think he's going to get going eventually, even though he only has 1 point so far this season. Colorado went through some personnel changes in the offseason as well, losing Stastny. That was a big loss for them. I think he's one of the best second-line centers in the game and had close to 70 points last season. So, 60 points, 71 games. They bring in Iginla, they bring in Briere, they lose Parento. Maybe a little bit of time it takes to establish new chemistry, but I think that they'll get it eventually.
Iginla's been heating up already on that Duchesne line.
A couple of assists last night.
Duchesne's goal.
And with Stastny leaving, they let Stastny go, effectively allowing MacKinnon to take over that second line center role.
Absolutely.
So if you do have faith in MacKinnon, I don't think Stastny leaving would be a huge concern because I don't know if he'd really benefit from playing third line minutes.
Initially, though, it's bound to affect them somewhat, losing a player of his caliber, I would think.
He's definitely a great player and he's doing well in St. Louis.
Ironically, Colorado's one win so far this season came against the Bruins, and that was a nice little buzzer beater there by Briere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I almost forgot about that one.
300th goal of his career.
How about
as well.
Briere? If he has to bounce back here and plays well with MacKinnon, that could be an exceptional second line.
Yeah.
Can he do it, though? Can he recapture the former glory? I don't know. I think he's well past his prime.
Might still have that clutch factor if he could score that 0.4 seconds left. He always seems to come up big when the moment matters.
In the key moments.
Yeah.
And that would definitely be what the Avs are hoping for. A lot of people think that Colorado is going to regress this year, or that was sort of the consensus, I think, amongst experts, that Varlamov couldn't keep up his Vezina Trophy pace and all of that. One stat that I thought was kind of interesting is Colorado had the third highest PDO in the league last year, which, if you get into the analytics at all, is basically a glorified luck statistic. And Colt,
Yeah,
maybe you can
they're
explain
on
a little
ice.
bit more what the PDO is all about.
The PDO is the sum of a team's on ice shooting percentage and their goaltender save percentage, and basically this number will sum up to 100 or 1,000 based on what decimal point you use. But we'll use 1,000 as the base. Colorado's shooting percentage was just shy of 10% last season, and their save percentage was over 930, or sorry, over 920. It came in at 929, which was predominantly Varlamov's excellent work there. So when you sum those up, it's over 1,000, which means that the average team will regress back to the 1,000 being the almost the neutral point.
Right.
So the theory behind it is that no matter how much skill it takes to score in hockey, there's always some element of luck involved, and it's almost impossible to sustain a shooting percentage that high against goaltenders of this caliber. So the general consensus among analysts is that Colorado cannot sustain that shooting percentage, that Varlamov can't sustain that exceptional goals against and save percentage while facing over 40 shots per game he's been averaging so far this year, and Colorado's not putting up even close to that shot total to compensate.
Right.
So if they can't get scoring, if they can't put the puck in the net for him, they can't expect him to continue stopping 45 shots a game like he did last season, which is what basically propelled them to the number 2 spot in the Western Conference. Another thing I actually wanted to mention about Colorado, last year they were among the league worst in puck possession stats, which I analyzed their Corsi percentage.
That is shocking to me.
Their puck possession stats, they're measured based on pucks directed at the net. So shots, block shots, missed shots. Anytime you try to direct the puck towards the net, that counts as a Corsi point,
Right.
or a Corsi stat. And Colorado's Corsi percentage was only 46, meaning that on average, the other team controlled the puck 54% of the time,
Right.
while Colorado only controlled it 46% of the time. And over the course of a small sample size, you can succeed doing that. The Leafs did it for the early half of last season. They had similar puck possession stats to the Avalanche. However, over a larger sample size, looking across an entire season, it's very difficult to sustain a winning team when you only have the puck 46% of the time.
So you would expect that Colorado perhaps overachieved based on those numbers, and basically that means that 54% of the time it's in their end, 46% of the time in the other team's end, bearing the theory that Varlamov's overachievement last year is why Colorado did so well. The thing about Colorado is you got these great young players in Duchesne, McKinnon, Landeskog. Just think that you hope that they're going to take the step forward this year, and that's why ultimately I think Colorado has a better chance of bouncing back. So yeah, who's more likely? To me, it's Colorado.
Okay, and I certainly wouldn't call myself a Colorado disbeliever. I think they definitely have a chance. I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs. I think that's a bit of a stretch to come off a year like that. They had over 100 points. It's pretty tough to regress that much that they wouldn't even make the playoff picture. I just think unless Varlamov can stand on his head, I don't think they'll be a front runner to contend in the Western Conference to emerge at the front of the standings come the end of the regular season.
Varlamov can stand on his head. Like, literally.
Literally, yeah, but
I think he practices a lot of yoga.
doing some head spins and maybe he can go on America's Best
yeah.
Dance Crew or something.
He can break dance.
Semyon Varlamov.
All right, players. We're gonna move on to surprising teams with Minnesota, Vancouver, the Islanders, and the Devils.
Yes.
They
All
came
right,
out
so-
strong, you know.
Very strong.
Yeah.
We just looked at some teams that came out weaker than expected, so now I guess we're going to turn it around and look at some teams that came out maybe stronger than people thought they would have originally.
That have looked very impressive. And we should probably preface, all of this, we quote unquote analysis by saying that you really can't read too much into this. Only 3 games into the year.
Yeah, 3 to 4 games in. It's tough to make season-long projections based on this, but this is just teams that we've been impressed by in the early goings of the season.
Exactly.
And a lot of people, other than us, may also be impressed by them. We're just going to give our take on it.
Absolutely. You want to get us started there, Colt?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to get us started with the New York Islanders,
Yeah.
who actually were my top cheddar from last week, if you recall. Of those acquisitions they made to get Boychuk and Leddy.
God
And
damn, they look good.
Is that ever paying dividends? Because Boychuk has just been... He was once a defensive-minded defenseman in Boston, but man, has he taken on an offensive role here in New York.
Well, getting back to the point that I made earlier that he's underrated. he's really taken that top defensive role, pairing role, and just run with it.
Exceptional play. They're putting the puck in the net left, right, and center. That top line of Tavares and Okposo just going crazy.
Dangerous.
Brock Nelson really stepping up. I know you're a huge Nelson fan. We'll probably get to him a little later. Steve has a few things to say about him. But, geez, overall, the Islanders, Halak playing well. The whole team just really coming together as one.
Looking good.
Taking down some big names, too. They beat the New York Rangers last night.
They remind me a lot of Colorado last season, if you think about it, because Colorado didn't have a lot of expectation. And, they were scoring a lot of goals at first and were this exciting team that everyone wanted to watch. And Islanders this year come in with not a lot of expectation, and now they're that team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say... I'm sorry, I got a little bit of pizza pop in my mouth here. We got some complaints from our viewers last week.
I have nothing. I have no food at all.
You want a pizza pop?
No, thank you.
Got two. Yeah, anyway, we had a viewer complaint last week about eating and talking, so I'll try to cut back on that. This mic picks up...
Didn't your mother teach you any manners?
Come on.
Jeez.
So
Islanders.
Yeah. Anyway, the Islanders, I'm fully on board that they're a playoff team, might even get through the first couple rounds, might wreak some havoc. You never know what's going to go on, but definitely a team that has a lot more depth than they had in previous years. Big scoring power, two new defensemen who have really been playing well for them, and a goaltender who has proven that he can be a bona fide starting goaltender for an entire season.
Well said, Cole.
Absolutely.
In Jaro Halak.
Absolutely. Are they going to stay this hot is the question.
We'll see.
Might not be sustainable.
Well, time will tell.
I mean, they are undefeated. They're obviously not going to go the full season undefeated. But I think they can maintain, they're scoring lots of goals. I see no reason why Tavares will slow down anytime soon. He's an all-star.
Ryan Strome is another guy that you didn't mention who, another one of these like early 20s guys, 21, 22, that I think he has, 3 points so far? And they've been expecting big things from him, another bona fide prospect. And if he emerges this year, two lines that can score consistently, maybe they can keep this pace going.
Yeah, I'd look for them to be a serious contender.
And Grabowski, I think, was another good pickup for them.
Oh, yeah.
Coming over from Washington last year.
Yeah, he's one of those players that constantly goes under the radar.
It's very shifty.
I had him on my fantasy team a bit last year. He put up some good numbers. He's a bit streaky, but when he gets hot, he can put up, several goals and assists.
Yeah.
Surround him with talent.
Especially playing in the top 6 role in the Islanders.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Anyway, Steve, do you have a team that surprised you early on?
I do. And last week, Colton, you got a chance to talk about your Senators a little bit, who have also looked pretty impressive so far. I think they've been a pleasant surprise. And so I'm going to talk about my beloved Canucks and give them a little bit of love here. Didn't have a lot of expectation for those guys this year. Last year, very disappointing. Missed the playoffs. This is a team that made it to the Cup final 3 years ago. But this year, it's almost like you buy like a $1,000 clunker, like a car. And then you find like a pound of grade A Chiba in the glove compartment. It's a nice, pleasant surprise. 2-0. So far they've beaten Calgary and Edmonton, so I guess I have to kind of keep that in perspective. But I've been impressed with the start this year, and maybe we should have seen this coming because the team really seems to have responded to Willie Desjardins, who comes in with a really good track record, won the Calder Trophy for the Dallas Stars last season. Before that, he took Medicine Hat to the Memorial Cup a couple of times, once as a coach, once as a general manager. And the thing that impressed me about Vancouver in the game against Edmonton there Saturday night was the way that they were driving the net and the way that they were playing physically. And again, keep in perspective that it's Edmonton, but they really imposed themselves physically on those Oilers. And I just loved the moment where Hamhuis kind of grabbed Nugent Hopkins and forced him to fight him.
Got him injured, and I can't play him tonight in my fantasy pool, so... way to go, Nuge.
I'm sorry for your loss there, Colton, but I got to say, and not happy over the fact that Hopkins got hurt, because of course you don't like to see that, but I just thought it was great. It was a real sort of momentum shift in that game, and no one from Edmonton kind of came to Hopkins' rescue, which I think is maybe a little bit revealing as to the problem in Edmonton. Nobody steps up physically, and team unity just isn't there. The SS Verbata line. I'm going to call the Sedins and the Verbatas that because we have the 70s line in LA, and I wanted to get a nickname for that line, and I'm going to give credit to Space Cowboy on HFB Boards who invented that, the SS Verbata. How electric have those guys been to start off the season? Sedin, 4 points. Henrik, 4 points. Verbata, 3. That's just in 2 games. The thing about Verbata is he's a right-handed shot that can set up in the left-handed face-off circle and just whip one-timers at the net. So he figures to get set up a lot by the Sedins. likes the short little give and go passes. That's the Sedin's forte. And a good stat as pertains to Vrbata is he was 11th in the league in total shots taken last season. And he figures to get set up a lot, so he loves to shoot the puck, which is what you want when you're playing with Sedin. He's got a really good shot. Guess who led the league in shots on goal last year, by the way?
I'm going to say we're considering the context. I'm going to go with Vrbata.
Well, he was 11th.
Oh, it's
Don't
not
you
bad.
listen?
I just said.
Oh, sorry. I'm getting sidetracked here. I'm trying to look up my next. I'm looking up my next team so that I can.
shots.
It's okay.
I have no idea.
Who would be your guess?
I would say
One of the
Alexander
studs.
Ovechkin.
It is Ovechkin
Yeah.
by a country mile. He had 383. The next closest was Sharpie, Patrick Sharp, with like 310. Vrbata had 263. Point is, Vrbata will figure to get set up a lot, and should be able to rifle a lot of goals this season. Maybe get back to the 2012 totals where he hit 35. Alexander Burrows seems to be revitalized this season. Tortorella just wasn't the right guy. I think in hindsight we can all kind of agree. The team just didn't really respond. Now Burrows is going strong to the net all the time. And Lyndon Vey is a guy that kind of came out of nowhere, played with the LA Kings last year, couldn't really get a toehold with them because they're so deep. But this guy had 5 points in the preseason, really stood out, hustles all the time, a solid playmaker, getting first-line power play minutes right now. Fantasy sleeper alert, hello. Keep an eye on this guy because he could easily usurp Nick Bonino for the second-line center job, position, whatever you want to call it. Bonino hasn't done that much yet. Vey has really been impressive. So potentially Lyndon Vey on the second line. If so, like I say, put him on your watch list, all you fantasy players out there. Bo Horvat is coming back soon. Their 23 first-round draft choice coming back from a shoulder injury. So Vancouver,
So
see if they can keep it going.
If you couldn't tell before, Steve likes Vancouver.
Love those Canucks. They play the Oilers again Friday night, so chance to
All
get to 3-0.
Watch out for them.
Yes.
All right.
All right,
and,
let's go. Let's talk about some surprising players. Hedman and Boychuk, they've been, lighting it up. Sagan, Kessler, and Nelson, Steve's little favorite guy.
Love that Nelson.
Love him.
The Reverend Brock Nelson.
So let's hear your thoughts, boys.
You want to start it off with Nelson then?
Let's talk about Brock Nelson. Leading the league, or tied for the league in scoring right now with 7 points in 3 games. Every year there's that sort of emergent player that nobody expects that does really well. So far it's looking like he could be the guy. Significantly, 3 of his points on the power play, but 4 on 5 and 5, so that's a good stat because in the first power play unit, he gets to play with Tavares and Okposo. Right now they have him on the second line with Grabowski and also Ryan Strome. Corey Conacher they have up on left wing on the first line right now, and he has not really lit it up to start the season, let's say. Just 1 point in 3 games and a -1, so the potential is there for Nelson to move up to the top line. And if that happens, look out.
Yeah,
I've already
that's,
gone.
Oh, sorry.
It's big. It's huge.
It's a big deal.
And
Oh man, I'm losing it over here. I'm losing my podcasting.
it's the pizza pops.
Getting
It's
way
a-
down. I
yeah.
think my
Those
amps,
are weed
my amps
pizza
are starting
pops,
to
aren't
wear
they?
off. Jeez, I was napping while you were doing your Vrbata thing. I was looking up my next team, my surprising team, and then Connor moved us on to the players. So I'm just completely off my game here today.
Colton's stoned
Maybe you're
again.
just
2 podcasts in a row, Colton gets
Maybe you
stoned before.
bought that $1,000 clunker that I was talking about.
Yeah.
I found it.
Those are
Pounded sheep.
weed pizza pops. You made them at home.
Okay.
Well, let's
You're
hear
just
what you-
stunned that Ottawa's 2-1.
Yeah, maybe that's
Or
it.
maybe I had
Oh.
too much turkey this past Thanksgiving.
One thing that I just wanted to point out
Weed
here about
turkey.
Nelson, though, and then we can move on to another player
Right.
here, but John Capuano loves this guy. He always talks about his hockey IQ, and not so much an analytics guy myself personally, but I did some online research, some Googling, and SB Nation, again, comes to the rescue here. Garrick16 wrote a really good article, so I'm going to give him some props here, because he pointed out that there's this stat, I guess it's called the WOWY.
The fuck
Have
is
you heard of
that?
this, Colton?
No, not until you brought it up there yesterday.
Well, you talked about the Corsi. So what this is it looks at the Corsi rating of all the players on your team that you play with, and it compares what their Corsi is when they play with you as opposed to when they don't. And it's a common theme with Nelson. Everybody that he plays with, their Corsi goes up significantly. And I'm not going to bore everyone out there, or you guys, by going through it player by player.
Thank you.
But But I do just want to look at
I'm sure both of
Okposo.
our viewers appreciate that.
All three of them.
We're going to get more listeners, though. Let's have some faith here.
Subscribe.
Okposo and Tavares, I think, is significant because without, and this is based on last year's numbers, by the way, but Okposo and Tavares both had a Corsi of below 50%. And Okposo was like 49.5 and Tavares 48.8. When they played with Nelson, the Corsi for Okposo went up to 53.6, and for Tavares it went up to 55.9. That is significant because you talked about the over-under for Corsi, the 50%. That means that with Nelson, the puck was in the opposition zone more often than when
Yeah,
they
they,
didn't play
they,
with
had
him.
they had control of the puck. Basically, not only Nelson, but the people he plays with. Therefore, every time he's on the ice, their puck possession stats of his teammates increase along with him.
Exactly.
So that's-
Exactly. And
that's good.
certainly that's not only the case. The only players whose Corsi didn't increase was Grabner. But he's out 4 to 6 weeks with a sports hernia anyways, and he's a bit of a black sheep on that team, so I don't know.
We can just look the other way on Grabner.
Yeah, let's just look the other way.
What do you got to say, Colt? 45?
Well, how are we doing for time here? Do we have time for two
we
each?
got, we got Nogs coming in a couple minutes. Our
All right.
guests.
Well,
Our
I'll-
first guest.
I'll fire through. Yeah, the first ever podcast. Anyway, I'm gonna fire through one here quickly. My surprise, not a huge surprise, I guess, but Victor Hedman.
Yes.
I knew he was a stud, but he's coming out firing.
Jeez.
Has he?
As of right now, as of today, he is tied for the lead in the scoring race in the National Hockey League. Won't be sustainable as a defenseman, but man, can that guy play!
Oh, yeah.
And not only that, he's almost like a Carlson who also plays better defense. It's what he's looking like this year because he hasn't been having any defensive lapses
Right.
while still putting up point after point, feeding Stamkos pucks from 100 feet away, giving him breakaway passes. It's unreal to watch him, and he's for people who already have him in their fantasy pools.
Good pick.
Good on you.
Oh, yeah.
I've got him in one of my pools.
You're one of those, I was going to say, yeah.
He's really he's doing quite well, and again, he can't sustain that. There's no way a defenseman can sustain over almost 2 points a game in production. But look for him to. I would say he's on pace for. I'd put him 60, 70 points if he can continue playing the way he has been.
A potential threat to your boy Carlson's
Yeah.
status as the
Yeah.
premier offensive defenseman in the NHL.
As much as I hate to admit it, I think Hedman could be in for a Norris Trophy season here, barring any injuries or any other unforeseen circumstances coming up. I think Hedman is a front runner.
Absolutely, and not to really, this doesn't really reflect on the two players because Hedman obviously surrounded by a lot more talent than Ottawa is. I think you would probably have to agree with that.
Definitely a lot more scoring potential in Tampa Bay. I mean,
Yeah.
Stamkos alone pretty much trumps anybody the Sens have to put forward. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The exciting thing about Tampa is Drouin hasn't even arrived on the scene yet.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
happens when he comes back? He's supposed to make his debut. Word on the Tampa Bay streets is Saturday night against, of course, my Canucks. So will I be watching that game? Yeah.
Will you be watching the Canucks get lit up?
Yeah.
Perhaps.
A true test for the Canucks that night, to be sure.
Another player I wanted to quickly touch on. I already talked about Boychuk a bit earlier,
Johnny B.
but I just wanted to reaffirm the fact that he is also one of these players that came out of nowhere. It's a surprising player. Don't think he can sustain the huge offensive production, but he's on the first power play unit. Don't see him getting usurped in that role at any recent time because he has probably the biggest slap shot on that team.
Oh yeah.
So with
definitely.
him playing on the first unit with this Nelson character that Steve's all hyped up about, Tavares, Okposo, look for him to continue putting up some fairly big offensive numbers. I'd say he's good for 45, 50 points
Yeah.
if he can continue playing on that first unit. And again, I think he'll remain there for the foreseeable future anyway.
That would be a shocking point total, I think, to a lot of people, especially after Boston, for whatever reason, didn't really seem to think of him as an offensive threat. But
Yeah, but again, he's playing in a totally different role than he has in previous seasons.
completely,
He's really showing that he can be that offensive player when they need him to.
Absolutely.
And maybe playing in a different scene is going to benefit him as a player because Boston wanted him to be that defensive defenseman when really maybe his strong suit, as we might come to find this season, could be an offensive defenseman. And it is a little bit early to predict that over the course of just a few games, but I certainly think I'm impressed by what I've seen, and I expect him to continue putting up some offensive numbers on that power play unit.
I think it's just surprising to some people. The perception in Boston just seemed to be that he was somewhat expendable, and definitely now we're finding out otherwise. So 40 to 50, wouldn't be surprised to see it either.
Not
Playing
at all.
real well right now. I wanted to talk about Ryan Kesler. Comes into Anaheim. and on their second line does man the point on their first power play unit, but real strong start to the season here for Kessler, and his point total so far, I think he's got 5 so far, I believe, in 4 games here. Kessler's numbers last year weren't great, only 43 points, but again, in hindsight, Tortorella, obviously not the right fit for Vancouver.
Yeah.
Pretty well everyone on the Canucks point production went down last season, wanted out of the city, wanted out of Vancouver, had some, not so nice things to say about the Vancouver media. Now he's in a really good situation. He's with a strong contender in Anaheim, potential to make a cup run. He really seems invigorated. And again, as a Canucks fan, I can attest to this. When he gets going, he becomes a berserker.
And not only that, but Anaheim at one point in time, even as recently as last year, they were pretty much a one-line team offensively.
Yeah.
And having Kessler step in and really add a legitimate second scoring threat
Is huge.
that could be what Anaheim needs to really propel themselves deeper into the playoffs than they have been in recent memory. And I guess Kessler, I mean, if you're a huge fan of him, I'll take your word for it because you're a Canucks fan. I can't say I followed him too closely. Obviously a great player, and with 2 lines rolling forward, it'll increase Anaheim's offensive production. Kessler could benefit from that. It's almost like a chain reaction, and he could continue rolling with what he's been doing so far.
You just cannot overstate the importance of that second line, and also, of course, the third line once you get to the playoffs. We all know Getzlaf and Perry are great. We all know that line can score whoever they're up against. But it's the second line that's so important. And I remember the Canucks, when they made their cup run back in 2011, Kessler was the second line guy. And forget the Sedins, forget Luongo, forget Hamhuis. Kessler was their best player during that run. And when he injured his foot in the conference finals against San Jose, that to me was the big reason why they weren't able to defeat the Bruins in the Stanley Cup Finals. So Kessler really impressing me so far. They have him on the second line right now with Edom and Edom. So classic enunciation by me.
We're really on our game today. I don't know what's going on here, but great podcast listening. I mean, we have some good information here. We're on the right track.
Yeah. Throw in some numerology at the listeners.
I've been working on trying to get our guest in here.
Yeah, working on Noggle.
Smith Pelly is
surprisingly late.
Kessler's right
No,
winger.
he's always late.
We have some more players I think we can dish about here.
Well, what else have we got on the
We
schedule?
got challenging Crosby. Who's next in line? Do you think? Not this year, I don't think.
Well, we mentioned Stamkos earlier. I'd say in most people's minds he's probably the front runner if anyone's going to dethrone him for the scoring race.
Can I before we talk about Crosby, can I just mention here quickly, because I talked about him last week, Anthony Duclair. my catatonic pick.
Steve's
That's
ultimate.
Noggle.
There he is.
Wow, this is going well. I'm going to turn the lights on.
Mr. Noggle.
I think this might be good to kind of reset here because we really need a guest to break up the flow of this terrible scheduling.
Well,
we'll just blame producer Connor. He didn't keep us on task.
Anthony Duclair with 3 points in his first 4 games and is a +4, so no longer quite so catatonic. Haven't added him to my team yet, but definitely on my watch list. And significantly, he's on the first line with the Rangers now, playing with St. Louis and Nash, the red hot Rick Nash. So,
and that, folks, could be the ultimate sleeper pick coming from Boudrezy last week.
Yeah,
very true.
So we
Sounds
got
like
Let's introduce our guest here. We've got Brian Noggle.
Brian
How you
Noggle.
doing, guys?
Want to say a few words about
Listeners?
yourself?
I'm new to the office, as they call it.
Yeah.
Former junior hockey player. Love the game. Love watching the game. Huge Leafs fan. That's about it.
we won't hold that against you.
Runner-up MVP 2013. Is that right?
Players player.
Players
Players
player.
player.
Wow.
Two years in a row, yeah.
Look
so.
at that.
Oh,
Players
that's
player.
a true team player.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So.
Great. Well, thanks for agreeing to come in here and do this. And
Yeah, she was tight out there for a little bit. I didn't think I was gonna make it in, but
She was tight. It's always a problem.
told the old coworker I had to use the washroom. For 5 minutes.
Taking a big dump.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, so we got Brian in here. He listened to our first podcast and took exception to my conversation where I was discussing our little rebuttal or our little argument with the cab driver there last week about Ovechkin being the best player to build your team around, and I mentioned that I wouldn't even put him in my top 10.
And I put him 10th.
That sparked a bit of office debate, shall we say? So we're going to
Little
hash out a debate.
controversy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've compiled a list of 12 guys that I would put ahead of Ovechkin, and I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Certainly.
Just bear with me, my organization skills have not been on par today. Here they are. Okay, so obviously Crosby. I think we can agree. Crosby.
Obviously, the number one guy, best player in the world. There's no doubt about that.
Crosby.
No doubt.
Now, would you put Ovechkin second? Where were you thinking of putting Ovechkin?
Ovechkin, not a second guy. I'd have on my list that I made that I should have brought. I made him 7th place.
Seventh place, okay.
7th guy I would have put on my team to win a Stanley Cup.
All right, so in no particular order, I'm just going to fire off some guys here that I'd prefer to build my team around. And keep in mind, this is not fantasy value, folks. This is just if I had to pick one guy to be the guy on my team that I was going to build everybody else around him. Nothing to do with points or save percentage or whatever. Just the guy that will be the guy for my team. And aside from Crosby, I had Taves,
Mm-hmm.
John Tavares,
Yeah.
Steve Stamkos,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anze Kopitar,
Yes.
Ryan Getzlaff,
Mm-hmm.
Corey Perry,
Yeah.
Evgeny Malkin. And here's where we might get into the point where some people may disagree with me. Carey Price,
I agree.
Tuukka Rask,
I don't agree.
Jonathan Quick,
Yeah.
Eric Carlson, Taylor Hall,
No.
PK Subban.
No.
No.
So there's a few near the end there that we disagree on.
That's-
However,
Love Subban. Don't get me wrong. The top 10. I don't know.
okay, that was a list of 14 players. So if you can't name 5 of those guys that you would pick over Ovechkin, then I win the debate. And you have to justify which 5 and why.
Well, first of all, I have to go with Weber over Subban. Don't you think, or no?
Weber wasn't even included on that list, was he?
Not on my list.
No.
Steve had him on his list.
And I think
I
I'd
mean,
have to.
I wouldn't include
He
him
can
either.
certainly join the conversation. I think I prefer to have Subban personally over Weber.
Okay. If I was going to pick a goalie, I think I'd have to go Lundqvist.
See, I also took
No.
into account
I don't agree
age.
with that, Bernice.
I also took age into account because if you're going to build a team around a guy who's nearing the end of his productive years in his career,
Yes.
I don't think you can quite build it around him because he's probably set for retirement in the foreseeable future.
Good point.
So that's why
I'd say in terms
Price-
of goaltending, Carey Price is your man.
Yeah.
He's the best goaltender in the world right now.
I agree.
And as you can see by the success of this Montreal team,
He's so calm.
he is.
Calm, cool.
He makes it look easy.
Yeah.
he's one of the few goalies that doesn't seem like a wacko.
And he hacks darts.
Maybe
That's
maybe
that
he
good.
is a wacko.
That's
Connor would
Harris.
fit right in with.
Been
Connor's
known,
been
been
hauling
known
on
to be
an
on the
e-cig.
devil's dandruff as well.
My e-cig fucking ran out. Like, it does.
He's been hauling on that
I got
e-cig.
nothing
all-
out of it
Oh my
anymore.
God! Look at that.
He's been, have you been? I bet you they can hear him inhaling on that e-cig.
I've had this for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
It
quit.
is.
Gonna go for a dart right now.
Nicotine's a
after
tough
this
battle.
Does that make you feel healthy?
No.
Get on the patch.
No.
Honestly.
I got Nicorettes. Yeah, they're all right.
Right now, you're on that hallucinogenic.
Oh,
Champix.
Oh,
Champix and your
should we-
Jampix. Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah. They gave me some real crazy nightmarish dreams last night,
Yeah.
but we don't have to get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
This has
we
been
could
really
have
great
a-
podcasting, I have to
beats
say.
and
We've
opposites.
really kept it on
Yeah.
track.
Yeah.
I've really been on my game. Thanks for tuning in, folks. If you want to hear more of this discombobulation, you can follow us on Twitter at weeklypuckoff. Send us emails at weeklypuckoff@gmail.com.
That's
And
us.
we'll be on iTunes shortly. I'll keep you posted on that. I forgot the jerseys today to take our picture, so again, I blew it. Back to the debate. Brian, which 4 of these... I'll hand you the list.
Thanks.
Name 4 or 5 players there that you
45.
put Ovechkin over.
And also,
Name how many players?
You're going to need at least 5 off of that list.
I'd put Crosby ahead of Ovechkin. I'd also put Taves. I'd also put Stamkos.
Tavares.
Yeah, I could put Tavares.
I
Think
put
about complete players before you disregard Malkin also.
Getzlaff.
and also, why do you put Ovechkin in your top 10?
I just think Ovechkin, he's starting to come back as the most prolific goal scorer in the NHL, without question.
He is
And
definitely
the
a great
guy,
goal
the guy,
scorer.
the guy can win games for your team. He's still yet to prove himself in the playoffs, but as a regular season guy that's going to get your team to the playoffs, I think that's one of the best guys you can have right now.
Really seems fired up this year.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think he's liking Barry Trotz as a head
Exactly.
coach.
Yeah.
And what's significant is under Oates, they had him at right wing, which I thought was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Much more comfortable at left.
Yeah.
And look at the game against Columbus last night as an example. There they are down 5-3, 6 minutes left. Looks like it's over.
Yeah.
And he scores the goal to make it 5-4. I know he didn't get the tying goal. I think that was Brouwer. But
That was Brouwer on a beautiful goal. That
yeah, it was a nice one. So he looks ready to go this season. He won the Maurice last year as it is. Hit 51, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the stat right now is over the last 5 seasons. Sorry, he's scored 258 goals. No one's even close. So
He's certainly an
That's a
amazing goal
huge
scorer.
number.
Yeah, but
Which is, like, if it was fantasy value, I'd put Ovechkin in my top 5.
Hmm.
When we're talking about building a team around a guy, I don't think you can include someone who has basically built a name for himself as a guy who doesn't back check, doesn't contribute defensively, and almost becomes a liability to the team in as many ways as he contributes offensively. That was just the way I was approaching it.
I suppose, but like you could have said that maybe 6-7 years ago, but his defensive game has improved tenfold. I think just from watching footage of him play, he's a much better player in his own end. He still struggles at times to perform like that for 60 minutes, but he's starting to show signs of being a better defensive player.
And
Well,
maybe with the
being
new
able to
coach,
score.
maybe with Barry Trotz, he will continue to improve that. But last season he was still among the league worst in plus minus,
Very true.
which concerns me with his defensive play. But we'll see what Trotz can do. See how he responds to that coaching style.
Responded well so far.
Whoa.
I turned it on, boys. Sorry,
Jeez.
scared him. Shit himself. Do you guys laugh at the name Barry Trotz? I do every time.
Yeah.
Trotz.
I laugh.
Trotz
I laugh when I look at him.
He's on a
very
horse.
funny looking man.
Maybe he's
Very
the old
odd-
Spice Man. I'm
very
on a
odd-looking
horse.
specimen.
Just trotting along.
Yeah.
I was thinking something else.
Anyway, Brian, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
You're the first ever guest on the Weekly
Indeed,
Puck
yeah,
Talk.
it was a pleasure,
job.
guys.
Great job.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and
Back
love
to
the
work.
fans. Yeah, indeed.
Back to
back
work.
to
We'll see you out there.
back
That
to
was a
making
nice bathroom
shoes.
break, eh?
All right.
Trots.
Trotz. Yeah, you had the
He had a
Trotz.
case of the
There's
trots.
You ate a lot of berries last night. You had
Oh,
the berry
gee.
Trotz.
Jeez.
All
This,
right.
this
that was
pod,
good.
this has been fun, despite how I really feel like I've blown it, but we had a lot of
Haven't
fun.
blown it. Stop being so hard on
All
yourself.
right, let's get into the You Blew It or Top Cheddar, whichever one you guys want to do first.
All right. Let's do this.
All right, Steve, we want to kick it off?
All right. Well, top cheddar for me, Minnesota and the San Jose Sharks, opening with back-to-back shutouts, and it's the first time that's been done since 2006. Also, just wanted to mention Jamie Benn's goal last night. Real blue-collar effort. If you haven't seen it, go onto YouTube or NHL.com or whatever you want to do. But the goal played out where he's at the blue line. It's a fight for the puck between him and 3 Blue Jackets. They're swinging their sticks, hacking away at the puck. Somehow he emerges from the pile, skates away, in on goal, and roof top right corner right over Bobrovsky. It was an awesome goal.
Bobrovsky.
And, Dallas coming back around, a hat trick for Sagan last night, and Jamie Benn with a 4-point effort. But back-to-back shutouts for the Sharks in the Wild. First time that's happened since 2006 when the Florida Panthers did it. Back-to-back shutouts. And speaking of Florida and the Florida faithful, or should I say unfaithful, 7,000 fans
Jeez.
for the Ottawa game on
While
Monday
Ottawa,
night.
while Ottawa trumped them
Disgrace.
1-0, a big shout out for
You get
Anderson.
more fans
Absolute
at the Moose
disgrace.
game.
There's so many empty seats there. I wasn't sure if it was a hockey game or a Creed comeback tour.
Oh man.
So Florida, and I'm gonna say NHL too, because why do we have hockey in Florida? Why? Sunrise, Florida. It's not where you play hockey. You blew it. And do we really need hockey in Las Vegas as well? I don't know.
To be a big.
That's a discussion for another day, I
For a
think.
later podcast.
Let's hear what you got to say, Colt.
Top cheddar, I'm gonna go again. I can't go a whole podcast without mentioning the Ottawa Senators. So my top cheddar is gonna be a shout out to Eric Carlson. Hats off, class act. Purchased 1,000 red letter C's so that fans can get the C stitched onto the jerseys.
I love this.
If they bought his jersey in previous years and they don't want to have to go buy a new Carlson jersey, he bought 1,000 C's to leave in the Sens fan shop at the Canadian Tire Center. So
I don't
if you
think I like that.
you go in with a licensed jersey, free of charge, they'll sew it on for you, courtesy of Carlson. Class act, team
Well,
captain,
kinda
leadership,
like
showing the
little-
qualities already.
Kind of like cocky or
Egotistical,
like
maybe? Yeah, a
you
little.
know.
It doesn't
I don't
thought of
think that-
anyone out there having a Carlson jersey without a C.
No, I think it's more that he
Little
wants to.
pretentious?
He
He
wants
needs
to.
it to be known. That
He
he's
said
captain.
he wanted to give back to the community that helped him become the player he is today, which allowed him to become the captain for the Senators.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
You guys are hopping against me. Is this supposed to be a you blew it instead of a top cheddar?
I think you blew it, Colt.
No, I think it's a class act.
Okay, well, what's your you blew it then, bah? Hey,
Well,
bah.
I guess I blew it. There's the end. I guess I blew it.
well.
Okay, no,
Let's hear
I
from
have
Eric
a you blew it.
Carlson.
I have yeah, Eric Carlson, that boy. I'm the only one clapping.
No.
Okay, you blew it will be this week. you could probably say these guys blew it every night, but I'm going to go with the Buffalo Sabres because I had them on my Pro Line ticket last night, and I had that ticket won. They were up 3-1 in the latter half of the third period, and you blew it. I lost my Pro Line. The Buffalo Sabres, I don't know why I bet on them, but they
I
won.
don't either.
They won the game, but it was too late. It was in the shootout, so I didn't win.
They blow it. They blow it more than
Night in, night out. The franchise in general is just a complete disaster. I think I missed that one.
Oh no, I was just gonna say something real dirty and
Off
greasy.
color. The best thing you can say about Buffalo is they are firmly ensconced in the Conor McGregor sweepstakes.
McDavid.
McDavid.
You blew it.
McDavid. Steve, he could have been UFC fighter.
You blew it.
Conor
Yeah.
McGregor, who,
All
by the
right.
way, had his first ever fight. Can I mention one more quick top cheddar?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hear it for Steven Stamkos, who had his 8th career hat trick
Yes.
the other night against Montreal, tying a franchise record. And can you guys tell me who holds the record for most hat tricks career?
Gretzky.
He does.
52.
How many?
Prior
52.
to having this discussion 2 days ago, I guess Lemieux, because I figured he'd be a bit more of a goal scorer than Gretzky would have been back in the day. But I guess the great one was just that good that not only he had thousands of assists, he also had how many hat tricks, Steve?
50.
50 hat tricks.
50, and the crazy part is he had 2 seasons, 81-82 and 83-84, when he had 10. 10 in one season. The franchise record for Tampa Bay is 8. It's a shocking statistic. It's more shocking even than Jennifer Lawrence saying publicly that she's attracted to Larry David and would probably sleep with them.
She said that she'd go below the belt.
That's right.
I like that.
That's right.
Good for her.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All right.
So Gretzky has more hat tricks than most players have points in their NHL career.
The greatest of all time. That's why he's the great one.
Jeez. I guess, are we going to cue the outro music here?
Let's do it.
Cue it.
And I am not on the ball. I know you might be surprised, but here we go. And let's just start saying where you can get in touch with this podcast. We are on YouTube. Our channel is called... Why is it... Did you not turn it on?
It's looking for you.
Oh my god. Our channel is called The Weekly Puck Off on YouTube. We'll be there in the meantime until we get ourselves up on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at Weekly Puck Off. Send us any email questions you might have. weeklypuckoff@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
It's been a blast.
Fuck off!
I really dropped the ball on this podcast.
All right, we're out. I gotta go have a smoke.
Woo! That's a wrap.
All right.
Thanks, folks.
Nice job, you guys.